these boxes are taking up a lot of space. You know, this Dell box is pretty big. The 8K TV box, slightly bigger, to be fair. And then we've got the LG G5, which we're waiting on the G6 so we can review that one. Got the Ultra Gear Evo. What's that? The GX9 that we reviewed recently. So yeah, subscribe if you want to check out more monitor reviews that are coming up soon, including Toy-Con, do you call it, I think, which is like a studio display replacement.
So a lot of people were actually quite disappointed when Apple launched their new version of the Studio Display and the Studio Display XDR, where they actually dropped the Pro Display, which was 32 inches. This monitor just arrived a few days ago, and this is meant to be what Apple were rumored and what a lot of people were excited for them to launch. So this is a 32-inch, 6K, very Apple-styled display that's kind of pretty much a studio display in everything but the being officially Apple. So we're going to check it out today, run through a few tests, just show you some stats and show you kind of the specs and everything, and see how good it actually is and if it is a good alternative to the studio display for those that were wanting a 32-inch Pro display but maybe a more affordable option. Now, in terms of the unboxing process, pretty straightforward. The box itself is quite small. It came in 2 separate boxes. Inside of one outer box, you get the monitor and all the other bits and bobs in one box, and then you get the stand in a completely separate box. So the monitor, the stand, you get a USB-C cable, which is 1 meter, 80 gigabits per second. Accordingly, it's a Thunderbolt 5 cable because it has a little Thunderbolt 5 logo on it. But I believe this is a Thunderbolt 4 monitor. You get a power cord, of course. There is a remote control, which we'll move on to in a minute because that's an interesting thing. And there is also a Visa mount option that comes included in the box. You don't have to specify this at time of order. It's just one product, you get the stand, you get the Visa mount, and then you can choose whatever you want to choose and put it on however you want to put it on. Okay, so let's moving on to the specs and pricing, because this is interesting to see how this compares to what would be the Pro Display XDR, which is like the big, very expensive, like £10,000 version, but also how this compares to the new Studio Display XDR and regular Studio Display. So this is a Nano IPS Black panel. It's 32 inches, 16 by 9, of course, and it is 6K, so you get a maximum resolution of 6144 by 3456. Very odd numbers, but that's what they are. Now this is 224 pixels per inches, which is something that a lot of people are very interested in, like the high DPI market that really, really wants that high Apple Retina display quality on their panel when they're actually working. Obviously you can get it built into your MacBook Pros. My MacBook Air doesn't have Retina display, but a lot of people do want that on their external display as well, which is why the studio displays and like the XDRs and the Pro displays were very, very popular. This is only a 60 Hertz panel. There's no 120 Hertz here. Gray to gray response time of 14 milliseconds. So it's not the best for gamers. If you're looking for gaming monitors, those are typically 0.03 millisecond gray to gray response time. Brightness wise, 450 nits in SDR, 750 nits in HDR, which on paper is fine. And most people, I always argue, don't use their monitors at maximum brightness. However, when you look at this compared to the Studio Display XDR, which advertises a peak nits of 2000 nits and then 1000 nits in SDR. However, this retails for $12.99 in US dollars compared to the Studio Display is like $1,500 and the Studio Display XDR is like $2,500. So it's a big price difference. This is a very, very affordable screen when you take into account all the specs and all the features you're going to get here. So you do get a glossy display on this. There is no option for a nano texture display, which a lot of people do prefer glossy, especially when you're talking about color accuracy. There are obviously some drawbacks because there are lots of reflections. You can already see on the screen here, it's already reflecting everything around us. 2001's contrast ratio, it's edge-lit LED, all of the usual color profiles here. You got 99% sRGB, 98% DCI-P3, and 99% Adobe RGB. Okay, so in terms of connectivity, we have one Thunderbolt 4 USB-C. There is also 4 USB 2.0 downstream ports as well for like USB devices, keyboard, mice, dongles, USB drives, all that kind of good stuff. Webcams if you want that. There is 96 watts power delivery over this cable, so it's going to charge any laptops, MacBook Pros, MacBook Airs that you plug in and want to use at the same time. This comes with the screen. You get a 2 meter Thunderbolt 4 cable included, although this is a Thunderbolt 5 cable because it has 5 written on it, so not sure about that one. 2-year limited warranty. Also, it has which will like blow the mind of all Apple people here, it has a detachable power cable, whereas the Studio Display's power cable is technically detachable, but it's like not advised, and you have to use, as you always do, a special tool that Apple made for you to remove the power cable from the Studio Display. However, this is completely removable. It's just like a cloverleaf, you know, three-pronged cloverleaf power cable. And you can get those, you know, literally off of Amazon for like a few bucks. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so in terms of comparing this to the Pro Display XDR, which is no longer available, which is also 6K, 218 PPI, it does give you 1000 nits of sustained brightness and 1600 peak nits, but it is a Thunderbolt 3 port, not a Thunderbolt 4 port on there as well. But otherwise, it's very interesting and comparable. This is, if you were planning to buy a Pro Display XDR, this is like the only one you can now get that essentially is as close to what would be the Pro Display XDR if you wanted something like that. With the color accuracy of more like a Studio Display, which isn't bad, it's still very, very good, but obviously it's not going to be as accurate as the Pro Display XDR because obviously there's a huge price tag attached to that. So yeah, in terms of comparing this to like the Studio Display XDR or the Pro Display XDR, so there's no cheese grater back to this. That's like obviously been and gone with the Pro Display XDR. This is very similar to the Studio Display because it's just, you know, single piece of aluminium. However, this is a kind of sandwich. So you've got the front glass, which is obviously like there's stuck onto the front of this aluminium chassis and the aluminium frame. And then on the back, there is this like edge, there's this lip that runs around the edge, which obviously means all of the innards have been put in from the back and then the back then stuck or screwed on. So it's not as seamless in terms of design as the official Apple display is. Now, stand-wise, it does have the stand that comes in the box. It does come in two pieces. So you have the kind of base and then you have the actual stand itself. You screw them together and then it then slots into the back of the monitor, and then you have a little thumb screw you can turn, which then locks it into place. So it's really, really simple to set up, very, very easy. One person is needed, that's a lot. Now, in terms of adjustability, you do have obviously some height adjustment. It goes that far down. It goes that far up. I will say the movement doesn't feel or sound as smooth or as polished as an Apple display would sound. I don't know if you can hear this from my mic, but it's like there's like tracks that it's like kind of going through, which doesn't feel very nice to do when you're adjusting it, but you know, it's a lot more affordable than the Apple Studio Display, so there is that. You do get some pivots adjustments, so it can rotate round, although I don't know if you can get it all the way around. Let's have a quick look. Okay, it will. Oh my God, does it just keep going? This is going to destroy the power cable for it. Okay, I'm going to unplug it for a moment. Is it just like, it's just never ending? Infinite rotation. So, yeah, you can put it in portrait, landscape, whatever you want. If you really wanted to, you know, scroll your TikToks and your Instagrams and your Reels and everything through a huge 32-inch display like that. So as you can see, the stand is very adaptable and you can spin it around and do all sorts of things. Cool. By the way, shop.petematherson.com if you want this cool wallpaper. We haven't actually mentioned it in any videos, but yeah, quite a few people have found it. So thank you very much if you want to support the channel. This video is sponsored by Sihu, and this is the new Doro C300 Pro V2, what they're calling the first full-body adaptive ergonomic chair. It features the Dynacore system for full-body adaptive support with the whole chair moves with you. Headrest, backrest, lumbar and armrests all move with your body in real time, whereas most chairs support you right up until you move. The SynchroFlex backrest conforms to your back the moment you sit down without having to fiddle with levers. The self-adaptive lumbar has 3 levels and it slides down with you when you recline, so no gap in your lower back. It also has these 8D bionic armrests which adjust pretty much every way you'd want, and they move with you when you lean back. And it reclines to 135 degrees with a built-in footrest. And the whole chair's BIFMA certified. Check it out in the link in the description down below. There are 2 dots of glue down here in the corner.
They're not glue.
You can kind of see them there. They feel like dots of glue when you touch them, but I'm guessing they're LEDs.
Yes, that was the IR receiver rather than LED.
Okay, let's just see if it's the, we think it maybe the, not that we've told people about the remote control yet, but yes, that is the IR remote control. Oh no, I think it is because it's very, yeah, it is. Yeah, there we go. Oh God, okay. So in terms of the USB-C like power output, it's rated for 96 watts. However, according to this Mac command, which you can run to find what it's actually capable of, says it's up to 100, which is pretty nice. Now, in comparison to the Studio Display, the Studio Display 5K display, which you can currently buy from Apple, does up to 600 nits brightness, also at 60 hertz, wide color P3 True Tone technology, and obviously they have the option for nanotexture glass as well. Right, now let's talk about an interesting piece about this screen, because this actually does come with a remote control, which is a first for an Apple product, which coincidentally looks very similar to the old style Siri remote control, which yeah, it's very interesting. It has a removable battery in the bottom of it, so you can have a little, little watch battery underneath. But it does have this menu system, as you can see here, and through the little IR receivers down the bottom here on the screen as well. You can then go through and change things like your brightness. You've got your picture quality here. It's really, I will say, it's not very intuitive because it has like left and right buttons at the bottom and then an up and down button on the side. Yeah, you would have thought it would just have like a D-pad essentially, up, down, left and right, but no, it makes it a bit awkward to use. So you have a menu button, you can go into the picture settings, brightness, contrast and sharpness. What else we got in here? Underneath color, we have options for gamma, color temperature. So you have a few different color picture modes. So you've got standard, game, movie, photo, vivid, and 6 color. Okay, let's just leave it in standard for now just to see how it comes out the box. Interesting. Nice to have a remote control, because that's one thing that is very odd, I guess, about the Studio Display, is that there is no remote control, there's no power switch, it's just, you just plug it in and it starts working. But yeah, I would say it's a nice to have. It certainly does look very, very familiar, but it is nice to have a remote control for a change. Now, one of the comments I do hear often is questions about daisy chaining multiple monitors. So those that do buy the Apple Pro displays and the Studio displays and the XDRs, you can then daisy chain multiple monitors onto those. However, this does not have any further ports to daisy chain monitors to. So unless this is last in the chain, then you can't use this and then daisy chain to another monitor and another, all that kind of thing. So can't do that with this one. Okay, let's get to the good stuff. Resolution and PPI. So resolution-wise, the Meirro does go, interesting, within Mac it reports as a 17.3-inch display. I'm not quite sure how that works, but it is reporting 6144 by 3456. However, under the actual display setting, this is like where Mac starts kind of going a bit wrong with how they show things. Actually, you're setting your scaling. And so what you will actually see in the macOS settings is 3072 by 1728, because what you can do here is if you go into your About This Mac, go to More Information, and then scroll down and go to System Reports, then click on Graphics and Displays, and as you can see here, it will say the resolution is 6144 by 3456, so you get the full 6K resolution, but the UI then looks like 3072 by 1728. So this is a whole half the resolution, gives you the correct scaling and the correct kind of look for everything. Now you can, if you want to, click on the Show All Resolutions tick box and put it to the 6144 by 3526, but as you can see, it's just, everything is super tiny. That's what she said. I mean, you can read it, but you're gonna have to be sat so close to be able to read that. It's just gonna be impossible. So generally speaking, you wanna leave it in the default 3072 by 1728. It is 60 hertz. There's no 120 hertz option on this monitor. So you do have a toggle option for the Meirro display to do HDR, which does put the entire display in HDR. And this is one thing where again, the Studio displays and the Pro Display XDRs may benefit from, because very much like the MacBook Air's display, like the MacBook Pro's display, HDR is kind of enabled all the time, but when you're viewing some HDR content on your screen, it only displays that HDR content in HDR. So if you are watching a YouTube video and that is in HDR, you will have the YouTube video in HDR, but then all the window around it and all the controls and your desktop will still be in SDR, which is a very nice implementation of HDR because it doesn't blow things out, and you don't need your desktop operating system in HDR. You just want the content, the games, all that kind of beautiful stuff to be in the full HDR. Now, in terms of pixel density, the Pro Display XDR is 218 PPI, like pixels per inch, which means there is incredible clarity when you're looking up close at text and images. Like anything with a sharp edge has a sharp edge. There's no blurriness or anything like that. However, the Meirro has a 224 PPI, so ever so slightly higher. In reality, it doesn't look that much different to a Pro Display XDR. The biggest thing you're going to notice between this is the difference in brightness. The Pro Display XDR will go a lot brighter. The Studio Display XDR will go a lot brighter, but in terms of comparing this to a Studio display, this is kind of like a big Studio display. It's a 32-inch 6K Studio display is how I would really refer to this screen as. Now, in terms of refresh rate, as I mentioned, it's 60 hertz only. There is no 120 hertz or anything along those lines. If you want something like that, you're going to have to go up or down or sideways to the Studio Display XDR, but that is then only 27 inches. or maybe you're going to have to look at something else like an LG monitor or a Dell monitor or something else, but then you're obviously losing the whole like Apple aesthetic as well. So in terms of the color accuracy, that looks roughly the same. So that looks pretty good color-wise. This is obviously this isn't scientific in any way, and the colors look completely off. They definitely look different on here on camera than here on camera. Visibly, these look very, very close to each other. So even though you might be seeing some differences in camera, you know, this looks very washed out, this green here, whereas this is not washed out, but on camera I can see already this looks way more washed out. So yeah, just keep that in mind here. Let's also do brightness whilst we're here. So I'm gonna whack the monitor up to its full brightness just so you can see how it compares. So this is max brightness on the Meirro display, and we have max brightness on the MacBook Air, and they are pretty close, I will say. Now one thing just to be aware of, if you put HDR on but then go turn HDR off on the screen, everything just looks horribly washed out. Not that you would want to ever do this, but it's just worth being aware of if you accidentally do this and wonder why all the colors are washed out. That is exactly why. Leave it in auto and you should be good to go. So next up, we're actually going to try and plug it in a Windows laptop, because this is one issue we had with the Studio Display XDR. We tried to plug this into the Studio Display into a Windows machine, and then it wouldn't work. We couldn't get any output out of Windows. So let's see how this looks on a Windows device. So second display, we get the full resolution, so 6144 by 3456. This is how I don't like Windows much, but this is one thing I like about Windows. You can see and choose the resolution independently from the scaling. So this has scaled it to 450%. So let's just knock this down to something more appropriate, like 200, maybe 175, something along those lines, which looks pretty good. It looks way, way blown out on the screen from what you're seeing. Let me see if we can control anything. 60 Hertz, we get no control over that. We cannot enable dynamic refresh rate because there is no dynamic refresh rate. And can we enable HDR? We can enable HDR, so let's enable that one just to see how that looks. Hopefully that'll kick in the HDR mode automatically. And yes, that probably looks even brighter to you on YouTube. So let's turn HDR off. Because this display supports DDCCI, it does mean, both on Mac and also on Windows, if you have the right tool installed, you can actually control the display's brightness. Now, you can't control it, I don't believe, from just clicking on the display and changing the brightness like you would do on a Studio Display or Apple, like Pro Display. But on a Mac, you can go up into the top right-hand side like here, click on the little I don't know what you call it, but the little buttons up here, go to Display, click on the arrow, and now you have independent controls on the brightness for the Meirro display, which is a nice thing to see. Okay, so now if we go into here and we enable display and night shift, you can definitely see that it applies. So yeah, and it also supports night shift, which is a nice thing to see if you obviously use night shift. Now, of course, one of the benefits because this monitor does actually work with Windows machines, obviously if you can get a USB-C out from your machine to the display, is you can use all the Windows stuff on it. So that means you could also game on this if you really wanted to game on a 6K, USB-C only, 60 Hertz, not very slow response time, but very slow in comparison to a lot of the gaming monitors. But if you really wanted to, you could game on this monitor as well. Speakers, let's do speakers, because does this have built-in speakers? Okay, so the display doesn't have speakers, however, Mac does see it as an audio source. It sees the Meirro PD6, which you can see here on the display here. But yeah, obviously does not actually work because I'm guessing there just aren't any speakers. And to be fair, there's no speaker grills or anything on there, so yeah, no speakers. Which might be an omission because that is one of the biggest selling points. That is a big feature of Apple Studio Displays, Pro Displays, Studio Display XDRs. The speakers on those monitors are the best in any monitor I have ever heard.
I'm not sure I had speakers, Pro Display.
Really not? No built-in speakers, okay. I stand corrected, there are no speakers built into the Pro Display XDR. For 10 grand, I'd hope to get some speakers. Now, in terms of the warranty, so the Meirro display does come with a 2-year limited hardware warranty. You do get options for advanced replacement option, which is a service where they will ship out the new monitor and then you ship back the faulty monitor for them to, fix or repair or whatever it is. But Apple obviously have like a gold standard of customer support for a lot of people. For me, the number of times I've used it and they've gone above and beyond what they should have to. However, with Apple, you do have a 1-year standard warranty, and you can then pay more, of course, to Apple to then extend that 1-year warranty up to a 3-year warranty with that Apple Care and Apple Care Plus that gives you those same advanced replacements and extra support and those kind of things. So technically, you could get more support and more longevity from an Apple Studio Display with the extra warranty. But again, for the price of this is a fantastic price. You just have to, I guess, buy from this Meirro company, which is provided by ClickClack, and trust that they will then provide the support that you need if you need to use it. But obviously, I don't have any first-hand experience of their support. I can't speak any volumes about how their support is, but they say they have advanced replacement and it's a 2-year warranty, so hopefully they honour that. So right, all in all, that basically leaves us with a good price. You know, was it $12.99 for a 32-inch 6K Retina kind of studio/pro display replica that gets pretty close to Apple in terms of the looks. Like if you want the whole like Apple aluminium aesthetic to like fit in with your desk setup, this looks like a fantastic option. Obviously there are other options if you want to go down to the 27-inch displays from brands like LG and Samsung and those other brands. There are other options if you want to go larger. One of my favorite displays right now is the Dell 52-inch, but then you're talking about spending, you know, twice the amount for a 52-inch display, Thunderbolt, but you get a lot of features with that as well. But this, for the right person, looks like a fantastic option. So I will leave links down below where you can pick this up. Huge thank you to Saihu for sponsoring this video, of course. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Cheers.